Good evening and welcome to episode 75 of the Jacksonian. I'm yours truly, Jatson Johnson, and here joining me again since the second time in the show's history, the one and only himself, Tusk Talk with Ty Hudson, as we'll
What's
be
going
going.
on?
There we go, man. It's only several more days till kickoff, and we've got a wild ride ahead of you. We'll be talking about Taylor Green, Bobby Petrino, Sam Pittman, John Calipari, Arkansas men's basketball, and much, much more. You're going to be having a lot of fun with this one. How you doing today, good buddy?
Doing all right. Trying to stay busy. Trying to feed the animal, which is Tusk Talk with Ty Patreon, and I bought the. I say I bought a good friend of mine in my Discord purchased the EA College Football 2.6. He gave me. He was like, here you go, man. I want you to play this, and sent me the link for the amount of money that it costs. It's $100. He's like, I want you to play this. I want you to check it out. And so shout out to Hog Pat. He's the man. And he's handed out a couple of codes in our Discord. He's a good guy, but really trying to, play that. And then also at the same time, trying to, produce content, get some stuff out there for some Razorback fans.
There you go, man. And, for those who don't know about you and want to learn more about you, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I started started the channel. It was originally called Pictorial Network. I think I definitely wasn't the first Arkansas content creator on YouTube, but I was certainly one of the first few that was continuously putting content on YouTube. And kind of been around since about 2018. Then I really dove into it in 2020, 2021. And I've just grown and grown. I actually had to change the name because of an affiliation with another company I was working with. So I had to switch from Pictorial Network to Tusk Talk with Ty. It took me like weeks to figure out like what I wanted to do and how I wanted the logo to work. And of course, that was before AI came around and started pumping out, logos and designs for everybody. So I had to take a good friend of mine out for a steak dinner to help come up with a logo for it, and we've used it ever since. And it's actually two people to help create that. Shout out to Ashley and my boy who I played high school ball with, Spencer Ordonez, who helped me with the logo. But no, it's born and raised right here in Northwest Arkansas in Fayetteville. Obviously, Razorbacks. I've kept up with them since I was. My God, in grade school. Back when Nolan was making Elite Eights and Final Fours, and that was the expectation every year, and stuck with them through the tough 2000s after they fired Nolan and they hired Stan Heath and Pelfrey and eventually Mike Anderson, and stuck with them. And it just, I have a habit of hanging in there with some of these rough teams, being a St. Louis Cardinal fan and a St. Louis Rams / LA Ram fan. So I'm kind of used to the abuse.
Oh.
So, hopefully brighter days are ahead for Razorback football. Baseball and basketball, it feels like they're headed in a pretty good direction, though.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned a little bit about basketball because, like, the 2024-2025 season, the first season of the John Calipari era, I couldn't help but feel like that was like a mixed bag, so to speak. But
yeah,
where would you grade that season exactly?
Well, something, they were already going into the year with a short roster. They were looking at like a 9-man rotation, which, I get his point about that. Like, I think in the broad scheme of things, it's like, well, it's easier to keep 9-10 guys happy than it is 13 or more guys. And you could play with a tighter rotation, and you for the most part, what you have in those 9 guys. You'd have to, right, to play with that short of a roster. But they didn't plan on all the injuries. John L. Davis, Adu, even Brazil, of course, you talk about the stars, that they also had to go without when you look at like Boogie Fland, who was kind of playing, he was playing the point guard spot, and Arkansas was still struggling a little bit. And then he goes down, and in comes DJ Wagner, who takes over the point, and all of a sudden Arkansas, now they're playing a little bit elevated level of ball. And ironically, it started at Kentucky, where Arkansas would get the upset and turn around and they do it again against Texas. And you're right, it was a mixed bag. And I felt like, and I probably should have been more. Probably should have stated this more often when I talk to my audience about how, like, yeah, I love the depth at guard. I love that they've got some options there. But overall, what I didn't talk enough about was, man, I mean, you've really only got like 9 guys. I mean, you don't have the kind of, you don't have that 10, 11, 12th guy that you can maybe use for matchups, maybe down the paint or maybe you can do something at the wing. You can rotate a little more there at a couple different spots, when you're talking about all your guards. But they had the length, they had the athleticism, and they had talent. And obviously it would push through. And then they started playing a higher, like I said, an elevated level of ball. And then, they get that round 1 matchup in the tournament. And I wasn't sure what to expect there. What's funny is I actually went on a cruise because the year before, my wife and we canceled the cruise the same time because I thought Arkansas was going to go on a run. And I said, sweetheart, I got to cover that. I got to think they're going to be really good. And ironically, Musselman, we didn't know it until like, December or January. Something's weird. And then we come to find out, he's going back home. He's going out west to go coach USC, where he's closer to his family, closer to his mom. And that year was a wash. So this year, we couldn't cancel the cruise. And so we go on the cruise, and Arkansas, of course, goes on a magnificent run all the way to the Sweet 16. But I got to watch like every game on the cruise. I bought the internet package, and they had the game on the TV in the gambling hall there, where the deck where they've got all the gambling going on, the slot machines and whatnot. So we were able to crowd around a bar, I don't know how many Razorback fans, and watch them advance to the Sweet 16. So that was really fun. But yeah, like you said, it was a mixed bag. It's difficult to slap a grade on it because you start off 0-5 in conference play, 1-6, and then you
1 win in January. That's nuts.
I know. Who would have thought? If you would have told me they're going to start off 0-3, I don't think I would have believed you. And then they just kept losing. They would lose again, then finally they'd pick up a win. But it was bizarre, and I don't know. And of course, Kentucky fans were in every one of my post game shows, taunting and teasing and taking shots at us, and it looked like Kentucky was going to be just fine, which they would end up, going as far as Arkansas did in the tournament. Talk about egg on your face, and then Arkansas would obviously beat them, at Rupp Arena. But yeah, it was wild, and I did not think when they started off 0-5. I said on my live, there's just no chance this team's going to make the tournament. There's no way. You don't have the wins in non-con, even though they've had a couple pretty good wins. They just didn't. It just wasn't enough. And I don't know how many teams start off 0-5 or 1-6 in conference play and make the NCAA tournament. Maybe there's more than I think. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it's that common. And the SEC being what it is, I just wasn't sure they would. Jackson, I wasn't sure they were going to win more than a couple, maybe 3 or 4 games in the SEC. And they would end up doing a little bit better and obviously being a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. But I don't know. I don't know what. It's like you have to give them 2 different grades, right?
Yeah.
A regular season grade and then a postseason grade. But you were good enough to be a top 10 seed. Not that that's great, but again, considering where they started, yeah, that's actually pretty damn good. Again, that 0-5 conference start. But yeah, their postseason grade it'd have to be at least an A-. All things considered, it'd have to be an A-. I mean, Kansas, your 10-7 matchup, St. John's a 10-2 matchup, and then you'd go toe-to-toe with Texas Tech, who would give Florida a pretty damn good game, only losing to Florida by 5 points to advance for Florida to advance to the Final Four. But yeah, losing a game where maybe a couple possessions go a different way, Arkansas might have won that game. So yeah, I think it's an A- postseason. Maybe overall I'd give it like a B-, B+, but difficult to kind of wrap your mind around how things started and where they ended up.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like when Florida was winning, I think it was because like Todd Golden wasn't looking at his Instagram DMs. Allegedly.
Shots fired. Wow.
I just like doing that. I just like to kind of fire shot on a coach.
Wow. Cross the bow, my friend. Goodness.
But in all seriousness, though, yeah, like when Arkansas beat Kansas, I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. I mean, like Kansas pitiful, but then when they upset St. John's, I was like, holy crap, this is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. The St. John's game was wild. I mean, I and I'm not gonna lie, had a few drinks in me. I don't remember every single moment, but I remember thinking like, God, Arkansas is controlling this game, and even though they were getting killed on the boards, as they always do, and that was probably that. If you want to talk about like specific stats, like what's the thing that you think they ought to do better next year? It's got to be the rebound. Got to attack the boards a little better. Got to come up with some more second chance opportunities on the offensive end of the floor. But even despite that, they were just too much for St. John's, and it goes to show you that Arkansas did have the talent. And I said before the year, like, this is I think I called it a Final Four caliber team with that roster, even with how they don't have 12 guys, they don't have a full, like what you would expect to see, roster out of the SEC. They got 9 guys, and with the injuries, that's the other thing we probably need to factor in to our scoring, or rating, whatever. But yeah, that St. John's game was, I mean, that was a 10 versus 2 seed. And it helped. Arkansas's defense I think they held St. John's to under like 30% shooting. I think St. John's made like 3 threes in that game or something, held them to like under 15% shooting outside. It was incredible. The only positive for St. John's was that maybe their rebounding was, I think they had like 7 or 8 more rebounds total than Arkansas. That game was very like that. When that happened, it felt like, oh my God, this really could be an Elite Eight Final Four run. And, wasn't that far off. I mean, again, not very many people thought that Arkansas, even before the season started, not everyone thought Arkansas was that caliber of a team to go on that kind of run that they did in postseason, because of the fact that, it felt like Cal had to kind of scramble. He had to bring a couple of guys with him from Kentucky. You had some projects. You had players that were really more like, like Zvonimir was more of a project player. There was definitely a conversation about like how good will they be on the boards, and that ended up being correct. Like, they weren't a great rebounding team. But Adu Thero's turnaround, Carter Knox, towards the end of the year, Billy Richmond, like these guys were just really turned it on. They took it to a whole new level, and to think that they were doing this without really 2 of their better players on their roster being available throughout the vast majority of the season at different times, it's still incredible. But yeah, I mean, there were certainly people who don't like Cal. There's certainly some people in the media that have beef with Cal. So some of that probably not because of just looking at the roster. Some of it's just the relationship they might have or don't have with Cal. And but yeah, it was impressive. It was a hell of a coaching job to turn this team around. I think he said in a post-game interview where he feels like he's coached like six different teams during the year because of the injuries and having to change the rotation and just the availability of these guys. So yeah, it's he's changing that up a little bit going into the 25-26 season, but I think he learned a valuable lesson, but I think he still kind of wants to play with a little bit smaller roster than what's considered the norm in today's college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really expecting to see Arkansas as like a top 2 seed for 2026 March Madness, but I've got a feeling they'll make a good run again.
I'm probably going to come off a little biased here, but the thing that stands out to me in something, and I don't know the math on these other teams, how many like seniors and core group of players they had return last year when you're talking about like, of course, Florida and some of the other schools. Like, we know Florida had some experience come back for sure, but like getting Wagner, Knox, Brazil, Billy Richmond, getting those guys back, huge. Absolutely huge. Carter Knox, his trajectory wouldn't shock me if next year I don't know about a lottery pick, maybe. I don't know. I've got a couple of Hog fans that are trying to convince me he will be a top 10 or higher pick or a little bit lower pick, still within the lottery range. Um, Brazil apparently they just held a practice the other day, and I listened to Coach Zimmerman, who does he does the radio play by play with Chuck Barrett here in Arkansas, and he watched some practice and he put a video out that's about 4 minutes long, and it was fantastic. And he talked about Brazil. He was like, "This looks like Brazil from the end of last season," which is not something that typically is carried over because he's dealt with injuries, and he's also a leader, which Brazil's never been. And they need that. They need one of their bigs. They need a guy down low around the rim, around the post to be a leader. When you got someone like that with size and athletic ability and he's showing some leadership, and oh yeah, by the way, he's a senior, a super senior at that. He's been in the league for a while. To have that is going to be huge for Arkansas moving forward. And then again, like getting Wagner back, who just really solidified that point guard spot, getting him back in Richmond, another one that kind of turned it around. That's huge. Now, I don't know that I'd put them as a top 2 seed either, but it would not shock me to see them as a top 3, top 4 seeded team. Now, unfortunately for Arkansas now, it's not like the 90s when you really only had to get through a couple of teams to get to the top of the SEC. Now it's like 60% of the league is capable of making a Sweet 16, Elite 8, maybe even Final Four run. That number shrinks when you get to the Final Four, obviously. But you had an SEC team knock another one out in the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's something we've never seen. I think this is the strongest the SEC's ever been, and it's just unfortunate for Arkansas. Again, in the 90s, it was Arkansas and Kentucky, and later on, you kind of throw some other teams in there a little bit. Of course, Billy Donovan would turn Florida around in the 2000s, winning back-to-back titles back when Florida athletics looked like they were on top of the world. But it's not like it used to be every single week. I mean, my God, Ole Miss has a potential Hall of Fame college basketball coach now, right? I mean, Tennessee's got one. You look at what's going on with Oates in Alabama, and Florida just winning another title. What is that? 3 titles in their school's history, and they've all come out of the 21st century. The SEC is just stacked. So, yeah, it's going to be tough to get there, but I think the SEC backed itself up in the NCAA tournament and showing like, no, we really are that good. So that'll probably help you a little bit moving forward. I know there's some debate about what the selection committee looks at, but it's got to help when you're looking at strength of schedule and all that, right? And on top of that, Arkansas's non-con schedule, I don't know if you've seen it. I don't have it in front of me, but it is unbelievably brutal. I mean, it's like I think they're playing every single team that was in the Elite Eight from last year.
Oh my God! Wow.
On their schedule, it is insane. So,
so they got Duke, Houston. Let's take a look at it.
Yeah, I think they've got everybody.
Here we go.
I've never seen that in all the years I've kept up with Arkansas basketball. I don't know that I've ever seen a single team play this kind of schedule. And to be fair, like maybe not all these teams are going to be as good as they were a year ago, but it's certainly on paper right now. It looks like there's a good chance that a lot of these teams are still going to be really good next year.
Well, the non-con schedule, like you said, it's brutal because I got Louisville, Baylor, Michigan State, Houston, and Duke. My God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh man. It's like I can't see it from 247. Yeah. Oh well, they're lost.
But yeah, it's nuts. Michigan State, lost to Auburn in the Elite Eight. It was a good game. They lost by 6 points, 70-64, I think, or 70, maybe 71. I don't know. It was 70 something to 60.
Well, there is one certainty from SEC basketball that you'll always know for sure. No matter what happens with Tennessee in the regular season, in men's basketball, they always come up short of a Final Four appearance with Rick Barnes. And I'm on because one of the reasons why They don't have that Bobby Hill Riz like Josh Heupel was given Tennessee football.
They did make the Elite Eight, which was a surprise to nobody, but they got, I mean, Houston, what'd they win that game by? Like 20 points? I mean,
I don't even think they had like 20 points entering halftime.
I know it was brutal.
I loved
Houston,
it.
I think after that game between them and Duke, I really thought that side of the bracket was
Oof.
actually going to end up being the winner because Duke had taken care of business against Bama. I mean, they beat Bama by 20 points.
I was glad to see Tennessee getting thrown out of the bar in the Elite Eight. Like that was like one of my favorite moments of March Madness. I mean, it's like, my bracket sucks, but well. At least I get to see Tennessee get bounced out of the Elite Eight. Kind of like where we saw them bragging about like, oh, we're gonna beat Ohio State because we're not intimidated by the cold, and then the Buckeyes just smash them to the ground.
Yeah.
It was just so funny.
They're a program that's like, all in all, as much shade as we want to throw at them, they are really competitive in all three of the major sports. And I know last year they got burned by Nico Iamaleava, and his little brother did the same to Arkansas, but a little bit different considering Nico's a starter, potential star. Now he's at UCLA, but like they are like that's the one thing, and I've said for a while, I think Tennessee is Arkansas's natural rival because they've had so many memorable moments. You go back to the Sterner fumble back in what year was that? 98.
Yep, 1998. Sean McDonough threw his puberty voice out on that play.
Well, then you remembered a lot better than I do. I think I was like 15 when that happened, or maybe 15 or 16. I remember just being.
Oh, I was a year old, but I was watching it on like the Internet Archives on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I don't watch that. I've not seen that game since the ending of it, and I only the highlights have come across, and even then I'm like, I'm turning this off. This is just disgusting.
Man, yeah, I bet like Arkansas Michigan fans will they'll be like, oh, I could totally relate. Sean McDonough threw his puberty voice out over our misfortunes.
Oh man. Yeah, but they've Tennessee, and I'm not trying to rizz up Tennessee as my kids would say. I'm trying to rizz things up apparently when I compliment them. But Tennessee they're good at every sport. Like they're good. I'm not saying they're elite. I mean, obviously they won a World Series in college baseball. Their football program pretty stout. I think with Nico Iamaleava they would have been a problem. Now I kind of wonder. I'm not so sure what to think about what's going on at quarterback there or not. I know they got a guy with some experience.
They got Aguilar as the starter for Tennessee, I believe. But I keep looking back at that Arkansas-Tennessee game from last season.
Oh, yeah.
I did not like Nico's decision-making in the final play. I was like, what the hell was going through your mind, buddy?
Total freshman moment. And he's a redshirt freshman, so it's a little bit like, it's not as excusable, right? If you're a true freshman, it's like, all right.
You had receivers wide open. Yeah. Like, bro, you could have just thrown it.
He made a couple of decisions in that game that I thought were a little, that I seem to remember. I think there was a check down throw that he missed. It could have been an easy first down, and he was trying to do something downfield. That's stuff that happens all the time. Like every quarterback at all levels does that. But then at the end of the game, he did what he did there, and it was just like, I know I kind of felt for Tennessee fans for about a millisecond. I was like, oh God, imagine if Green had done that, we'd be irate. So yeah, that was wild. But so again, it goes back to what I said. I think Arkansas and Tennessee, they've had memorable moments. The fans, of course, no fans like each other, but in the SEC, it feels like the two most vitriolic, toxic fans on social media are Vol fans who throw mustard packs or whatever, or mustard bottles onto the field. And then you got Razorback Twitter, which is just savage, especially when they think they've got a good team, they're even worse. But and again, going back to the Sterner fumble, I think it's just a natural rivalry. You look at baseball with Dave Van Horn and versus Vitello, even though they're like buddies behind the scene, fans seem to think they all hate each other. So it just kind of fits in perfect. But yeah, I'm curious to see. Like, that is a very interesting matchup next year. I know we haven't segued into football yet, but Arkansas at Tennessee is it's a curious matchup for me. It's probably one of my biggest, like, this could be a coin flip game.
Oh man, all eyes that week will be on the Red River rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
But that just means anything can happen. I mean, if anything, I think Arkansas's upset over Tennessee saved Sam Pittman for 2024 because, like, as we recall, he was on a scorching seat. I mean, like, blowing that Oklahoma State game, that was just mind blowing right there.
That was a game that just, I had such a hard time getting that taste out of my mouth. Like, and then thinking that, even then I knew going into this game, I don't think Oklahoma State is that great. In fact, I think I picked Arkansas to win the game. I said that running back they had, I said all offseason that guy's overrated. Wouldn't you know it, he wasn't very good this year. Now, maybe he had injuries. I'm not really sure. But, everyone was talking about that guy. I've already forgotten his name. They talked about
Ollie
him like
Gordon. And
Gordon.
I was one of the guys that was basically a huge simp over what he was doing at Oklahoma.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought, I watched quite a bit of his film, because usually July is when I'm really diving into everything. And unfortunately, I'm off to a late start this year. I've been kind of busy this summer, but I just kept watching film, looking at all of his PFF analytics. And I remember going into the season going, I think he's overrated. And he was terrible last year. But I think some of that might have been injuries. I don't think their offensive line. I think naturally he is a talented back. There's no mistake about it. He's a good back. But Arkansas was able to kind of contain him. And then the second half happens, and it's like, what am I watching? What is this? This is things not to do in a second half on the road 101, and you're doing all of them.
Yeah.
And, whether it be, just mistakes, turnovers, defense collapsing, it just was unbelievable. Oklahoma State fans will tell you, oh, we beat you, we found a way. And it's like, okay, again, call me biased here, but no, this was Arkansas giving that game away. They were a far better team than you are. They just they put on a masterclass on how to lose a game you should have won by 17 points or more. It was just unbelievable. And yeah, I'll tip the cap a little bit to Oklahoma State. They made some plays. They made some things happen. I mean, after all, defense at the end of the day can win you games. And that certainly would be their defense. But my defense would be Arkansas just completely gave that game away. And it was just inexcusable. And that's not the first time we've seen them do that. And we've seen Sam lose so many 3-point, 2-point, 1-point games over the years. It's just kind of synonymous. It's in that Arkansas zeitgeist now. It's like, yeah, this is what it is. This is what they are. This is what Sam Pittman is. He struggles to win these kind of games.
Well, and the media days will be next Thursday, and we see Sam Pittman going over there, and we see a defensive lineman Campbell is going over there. Taylor Green, the QB, is going, and we got linebacker Xavier Sorey Jr. coming over, and that's going to be next Thursday. What are you hoping to see from Arkansas from the 2025 media days?
Well, I know what they're going to talk about. They're probably going to get into. We know they're all going to talk a little bit about revenue sharing and all the legal stuff that's been going on. Like they're going to turn it and spin it in a very positive light. But I for Arkansas themselves, I really don't know what to expect. Who they pick to go with Ball and Green and Sorey makes sense. By the way, really quick, EA College Football 2.6 making Xavier Sorey 81 overall. What the hell are you thinking? That's a potential all-SEC linebacker, former 5-star, and you're going to tell me after 100 tackles, 2-3 sacks last year, like the kind of performance he had, that's only good enough for 81 overall? What are we doing? No, he should have been 86.
I don't think those guys stay up till 2, 3 a.m. Studying college football. They're just like, just put whatever name you can think of.
Yeah, just throw him in there in the 81 category. Him and Robinson.
Brian Williams and everybody else.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith here.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what to expect. I'm sure they're gonna highlight, what they did in the portal, and I assume he's gonna talk, about some of the new features, and Petrino year 2 in the offense. Taylor Green's gonna talk a lot about. I'm sure they're gonna get asked about the weapons, because that's you lost Tesla and Armstrong, both are gone. You lost some guys to the portal. Luke has, who's maybe even, I think he's just in the 2 deep for Ole Miss. He's surely not the starter. I know they're excited about the offensive lineman that transferred there, but yeah, I that's probably going to be what they're asked, and I'm not sure what they're going to say other than, well, no, I know exactly what they're going to say. Oh, we're excited and everything's, we feel like we may be upgraded or whatever. Which is, unfortunately, we didn't get a spring game, so I'm not entirely sure what they have from an offensive standpoint. I guess we'll know a little bit more through fall camp, but how closed off the U of A is becoming more and more to the public, not allowing, that they're not allowing more media people there. They're limiting who could be there, and they're kind of limiting access. That's one of the reasons why fans, people are asking me, where are the videos at from practice on Twitter? It's like, well, they're minimizing what you can do at practice and who can be there. So I don't know what to expect as far as, what you'll see through fall camp. But getting back to the SEC media days, though, it's kind of it's probably going to be about what you expect. I think they're the last day, if I'm not mistaken. It's them, and is it Kentucky and Arkansas, or?
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it's gonna be Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, and Texas A&M.
Well, they put A&M in there, which would probably be the best of the group, I guess.
Yeah, I mean they'll. I mean, it's like their national title drought is a year older than Bud's Bunny. That's something to kind of sink in. It's like the same age as Donald Duck's current outfit.
Yeah.
That's bad. That is so bad.
Listen, we all knew when they joined the SEC, their recruiting was going to skyrocket, and it did, being the only team in Texas in the SEC. And then Texas joined, and Oklahoma joined, and A&M's having a fit over it. They don't.
Oh, they did nothing before Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, they had that one good year with Manziel, and they did great in the COVID year. But then, 2022, they're expected to do big things. But then, there were rumors of the players caught smoking dope minutes before kickoff against South Carolina. I mean, that's what Jimbo was letting go around. I mean, it's like, you want to smoke dope, fine, but don't be doing that
my God.
before kickoff.
What a mess. What a mess the whole Jimbo Fisher experiment was for them. And you knew when they signed that just massive deal when he left Florida State, it's not like Florida State were world beaters when he was leaving there. Like, they were trending down, and and yeah, like you said, he had, a couple of decent years. He had one really good year in the COVID year, but it was such a disaster for them. And I think, honestly, at A&M, I think they got the right guy. I like what they're doing over there.
Mike Elko's better. I mean, he won at Duke, so I mean, it's like he did fantastic as the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame and Wake Forest. So I mean, there's that.
I'll say this: Elko's the kind of guy. And I realized they weren't super exciting last year, but the fact that he was able to do what he did at Duke and really, left it well. I mean, while he was there, they were, I mean, it's a different league than being in the SEC, but that's the kind of guy that you would hope could do that at somewhere like Arkansas.
Oh.
That's the kind of guy, he was able to go to a program like Duke and turn that program around and bring in good players, and so yeah. And I thought last year they'd be better. I kind of thought they'd win 10 games, but the hype for A&M isn't what it was going into last year, and yet I still think they might be really good. They might even be the team to beat in the SEC. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember I called in on one of the shows that you host. It was the post game for Arkansas Auburn for 2023, and I talked a little. We talked a little bit about the hot seat of Pittman. Is he getting that bow confidence? If not, is Mike Elko going to be looked at by Arkansas? And it's Arkansas had a missed opportunity on Mike Elko.
Yeah, I would have liked that hire, and I mean, obviously, it's easy to say that now because he wound up at A&M, which is, ahead of Arkansas in football and has been since joining the
But
SEC.
they're not ahead of LSU or Texas.
No, they're not top dogs yet. They want to be so bad, and they were so close with Manziel. But beating a team is one thing. Maintaining that greatness is something else entirely, which A&M just has not been able to do since joining the SEC. Neither is Missouri. Missouri came in at the right time. You remember that? Like when they came in, the East was garbage. The SEC East was terrible. And they come in at the right time. That team was designed to win a lot of games and could be competitive in just about any conference. And they won back-to-back SEC East. That they were the kings of the regular season until they played SEC West teams. But
I mean that was always the case for Gary Pinkel at Missouri, where it was like they were always winning the divisions but could never win the conference titles. I mean, like 07, they were number one entering the Big 12 title, going against Oklahoma in a rematch. They're like, okay, we're not gonna lose this one. Okay, they do. Like, let that sink in for a moment. We almost had a Missouri West Virginia national title in all of college football that year.
People kind of, I thought Pinkel. I didn't think Missouri would ever get back to that point, and Drinkowitz has actually done that. Drinkowitz has done a pretty good job. As hard as that is to admit, Drinkowitz has done a pretty good job of getting them back. But yeah, I mean, in what was it, 07? Yeah, they were like 7-1 or something in the North, in the Big 12 North, and I think they went on to finish 12-2. That was a really good Missouri football team.
Oh yeah, they went up against Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl on Fox.
Sure did. Arkansas had fired Houston Nutt, or he had stepped down, and Reggie Herring was the interim coach, and it just was not a good. It was not a good mix at all.
I mean, at least Houston Nutt went out like a man.
He did.
I mean, so it's like there's that.
He did. And Arkansas fans were kind of they didn't care about that bowl game at all. I'm not saying that that's why they lost, but Arkansas fans' mindset was already moving forward, and that was not a game we were that upset about losing, because it was like, no, we know what's about to happen. And then we found out what happened, and after 4 years, a motorcycle gets involved with a blonde or something, and now he's our offensive coordinator.
Oh, I know. Like Petrino, like I heard he was pissing away his Christmas bonus on the secretary. Like, my God, dude, think of better ways to spend money, man.
20 grand was the rumored amount.
You're
that he
married,
gave her.
man.
Yeah.
Oh, these days he's probably like the old guy yelling at the TV or whatever. But I mean, he's still the offensive coordinator at Arkansas. Like, I'm wondering, like, does he really care about like redeeming himself, or is he like that guy on the Rifleman that's like coming into North Fork, going, "Hey, I'm here to redeem myself in the hardest place to redeem yourself, but I gotta take the money from these two crooks,
yeah,
and take the money and run."
Yeah, that is the question. Is like, because he went down to the Little Rock Touchdown Club, and he teared up and he apologized to the fans. I'm going to be real, man. I don't care if you think that was fake. Okay, fair enough, but he still did it. So he's either one hell of a liar, and maybe he is when you are found guilty of the things that you did. You lied to your athletic director, you lied to the fans, you lied to your, the personal stuff with his wife. I try to stay away from all that, but maybe he is a hell of a liar. I don't know, but I got to watch him when I had access to practice, when I was credentialed. I got to listen to him and watch him coach. I really kept an eye on him, and he was running up and down the field. He was firing up. I remember him yelling at Green for not throwing a go route to Isaiah Centenia, and like screaming and swearing. And it was like, okay, there's a little bit of vintage Petrino still in there. I don't know if he's truly trying to redeem himself, but he did some pretty decent things at A&M his last year there his only year there as the coordinator. And obviously last year they were top 10 in total offense. They were top 10 in total yards per game offense. So he did some good. I just, with the first year with a new quarterback and a whole new system for these guys, and offensive line issues, the fact that they were able to accomplish the things that they did was impressive on offense, but then they just couldn't finish off drives like we talked about earlier. Like they, a ton of turnovers, fumbles, and I think Green by himself had like 15 turnovers or something. Just really could not get out of their own way. If some of that stuff changes, if the ball drops in Arkansas's favor in a couple of games. I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine actually at a Flying Burrito just yesterday. Shout out to Matt, who's in our Discord. We were talking about that. Like, it had a couple things gone their way, Arkansas may have won 8-9 games last year. But again, that just speaks to the Pittman era. Like, sometimes I wonder if he's just completely incapable of winning those close games. I know a lot of Hawk fans are going to say, well, no kidding, but you go back to that 2021 season, it felt like, no, he can win these games. He can win close, and he can actually blow games wide open against teams with more talent. You look at Texas when they came into town. Of course, it was year one Sarkisian, but still, like, Texas has 2-1 talent, on their roster, no doubt. And it was only Arkansas' second year. It's not like Pittman had been here for 5 years, and they ran Texas off the field. So, a lot of faith has been lost in Pittman. And I would argue too, if you look at the stats, the defense has got a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. But they have got to get this thing figured out, Jackson. If they can't win, and this is kind of the rhetoric from fans, is they've got to win 8 games for him to keep his job, for them to feel like there's something worth keeping everybody around. It's got to be 8 regular season games or more. And I tend to agree with that. If it were me, yeah, you need to win 8 or you're gone. But we don't know what the number is. There's people who claim to be in the know who are telling me, no, all he's got to do is make a bowl game. And maybe that's true with this revenue sharing. Maybe they don't want to spend the money on paying his buyout and everything. Maybe they really are financially in more trouble. But I've got news for everyone, though. Arkansas is not the only team that's having to make cuts. I think they're expected to cut like 10% of the actual athletic department. And they've already fired one long-term individual within the university. And so I don't know. I guess there's a lot of schools are facing this. It's not just Arkansas. But if that is true, then maybe there is a case to be made that maybe all he does have to do is get to a bowl game. But I tend to believe he's got 7 is where I kind of like, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens if he wins 7. If he wins 7, maybe that's enough that he keeps his job. Maybe
that's not. Like a lobbying session.
Yeah. It's really that's the thing. Like, and no athletic director worth their salt is going to come out and say, "Oh no, he's got to win 8." They're not going to do that. They're not going to put that kind of pressure on their coach. So you don't really expect a lot of transparency there. But I wish we knew. It'd be nice to know. That way, as the season's progressing, we kind of have an idea of what's about to happen. But 7 games to me is the big question mark. Would that be enough for Little Rock, where the big wigs are, the money people within the university, and of course, and where Hunter Yurchek's at? I would love to know what the number is, but 7 is the one that I'm curious about. If they get to 7, is that going to be enough? And can he get to 7? Right? And I know that's something you want to talk about here in a minute, but
oh, for sure, yeah. Because I've got the schedule pulled up, and you got a couple easy cupcakes with Alabama A&M and Arkansas State. And then you got the rest of September. You got Ole Miss, and Memphis is that perfect trap game right there.
Man,
that's a scary one.
It's not quite the baseball SEC baseball equivalent for Arkansas scheduling. Definitely not what the basketball schedule is going to look like. But those teams are equipped to deal with whatever's thrown at them. That is the question for Razorback football. Are they equipped? And listen, Arkansas State, I'm not one of these people that think that this should be a close game. To me, that might be the talking about a line being drawn in the sand, that might be the game where if that's close, we have a problem. I understand they're bringing some guys back. I know that quarterback is a playmaker. But, just on paper, and I know we just talked about how that doesn't always matter, but just on paper, it's 3-1 talent for Arkansas versus Arkansas State. I think Arkansas State's picked, and maybe I'm wrong, and we probably should look this up. I think they're picked like bottom 4 in the Sun Belt. This is not a team, and I realize what they did last year. They were They were pretty good last year. I think they won 7 plus their bowl game, maybe, or maybe it was 6 plus their bowl game, something like that. And I know they're excited. Like I said, that quarterback, Rayner, I know they're really excited about him. He completed like 62% of his throws, threw for almost 2,800 yards. He could run the ball really well. It's kind of ironic that him and Green are similar in a lot of ways, except Green is likely faster and is also 6'6". But Rayner is a problem, and they've got some guys that can run the ball too. They've got some guys that are capable of running the ball, but if that game is tight, yeah, I think it's going to be a really rough year, and that's kind of where I'm at with it, Jackson. I think that Arkansas State game is going to tell us quite a bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, like Ole Miss, Memphis, Notre Dame. That is not an easy slate. That is not a slate I would wish on my worst enemy. I mean, like Arkansas, Memphis. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like that could be a triple overtime game for sure. Like Memphis might catch Arkansas thinking a little bit about Notre Dame because I know, like, it would not surprise me if I saw like Arkansas losing to Memphis possibly. And then, like, just suddenly pulling off the upset over Notre Dame. Not saying that's what will happen, but I'm saying it would not surprise me if I saw something like that happening. Because we've all seen stuff like this occur in the world of college football, and Arkansas is a game that Notre Dame should not lose. But since they've had Marcus Freeman, they've had that one game that they shouldn't lose. Case in point, Marshall 2022, Northern Illinois last season. I would not be surprised if I see Arkansas upsetting Notre Dame in the regular season.
And that's what makes the Arkansas State game interesting, because after that, Arkansas's got to play who? They got to play Ole Miss. Is Arkansas State a trap game? Is Memphis a trap game? Now, I want to reiterate something. I didn't put this well enough. This is an incredibly tough schedule. I don't want anyone to think I'm not. There's some people saying this is the toughest schedule in Arkansas history, and it's not fair to really compare basketball and baseball. But I will argue that the Arkansas or SEC baseball, when you compare the three sports, SEC baseball is far and above the best of the three. It is absolutely the best. I mean, they send 3-4 teams to Omaha every year. You look at the national title winners over the last 10, 12 years, it's usually an SEC team involved if they're not already winning the damn thing. And then basketball, the last 5 years has gotten so good because of the caliber of, the coaching pedigree has just rubbed off on everybody. Everyone now has a little bit more money for the basketball budget. So they're, and then you got the NIL and the portal and blah, 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 blah. This is a really tough schedule. And I don't want to undersell that. There is a potential here for Arkansas to play 6 ranked teams. There's potential. I don't think that happens, but there's absolutely the potential for that to happen. Now, I think when the dust settles, it's going to be a really tough schedule, but I don't think this ends up being the toughest schedule. I don't think this ends up being the number one schedule because I think there's too many questions. You look at Tennessee, what's going on at quarterback there. Ole Miss is breaking in a new quarterback. They lost Pooh Paul, who went to my Rams. I hope he's great with the Rams. Arkansas State and Alabama A&M, you should absolutely destroy. And I'm going to be real. I think I would take Arkansas over Memphis. Memphis was good last year, and they're going to be good this year. But I think I would take them to win that. Is it leaning towards a coin toss? Yeah, but I think I would take Arkansas to win that game. But then it's like you factor in Notre Dame, and you do got to factor playing at Memphis, but that's not a difficult game for Arkansas to travel to. A&M's going to be in Fayetteville, and that's right now a flex game, by the way. We don't know what time that's going to be, hoping it's a 7 p.m. game. Auburn's going to be in Fayetteville. I'm not buying in, Jackson. I'm not buying in that Auburn is elite. I know they did really well. I still have questions about their head coach. I just don't think that's this unbelievably high.
If he's messing around with the school payphone again or no. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah, the burner phone, the infamous burner phone. I'll never forget that. We used to call him Holy Freezus, because that was his whole spiel, was being like super religious with his players and everything when he was at Ole Miss. But we know what he was doing. But Mississippi State's going to be in Fayetteville. Yeah, they're going to be better than last year. But I just I just think that coach took the wrong job, if you want my honest opinion. And maybe maybe I'm wrong, Jackson. Maybe this ends up being the most difficult schedule of all time. I do believe when the dust settles, this is still a top 10, top 5 schedule. But I'm not buying in on Auburn. I'm not buying that Mississippi State's going to be 5 times better than they were last year. LSU, and this is for real, my for sure losses, just looking at the schedule, and I have not released my win-loss prediction yet. But in my honest opinion, there are only 3 100% for sure losses. That's Notre Dame, at LSU, at Texas. I think every other game could be looked at as a coin flip. And I'm not the only one saying that. There are some other non-biased Arkansas fan, or not Arkansas fans, sorry, non-biased media people that are kind of saying the same thing. Not saying they go 10 or 9-3. Not saying that. Ole Miss is going to be tough. That is not going to be. I would lean probably towards Ole Miss, but definitely not by the margin that we saw last year. That unfortunately happened in Fayetteville. That game was just stupid. But yeah, and a lot of this I'm also banking on. And someone's going to say, "How could you think that?" It's year 2 Petrino under a year 2 Taylen Green, with what I think is going to be a much improved offensive line. They went and picked up Robinson out of Georgia Tech at left tackle. I've been watching a lot of Georgia Tech footage, and Robinson is the man. I mean, this guy is bulldozing people when he's pulling. He's not giving up. I think he gave up 3 pressures all year, 0 sacks. They moved Fernando Carmona to his natural position, which is left guard. I don't know if they made an improvement at center or not, getting the kid from UCF, but I think he's somewhat around the same. They're going to put the Oregon transfer at right tackle, who was a former, a top 100 player, top 120 player out of high school. He redshirted last year at Oregon. He's now at Fayetteville with the Razorbacks. I think he's likely to be your starter at right guard, or right tackle, excuse me. And then we'll see what they do at right guard. That could be Blackstock. That could be Harris. There's a couple other guys that I think will compete, but it'll likely be one of those 2 guys. And I think their offense could be better. What they did was they put together a receiving core that's full of speed. I mean, they've got guys. I think 60% of those guys are sub 4.4, 4.5 guys, and maybe even have a 4.3 guy that's going to line up at the slot. They've got Sharp and Blake. I'm not saying they're all American. I'm just saying they've got speed. That's something they had when they had Jarius Wright, Joe Adams. Greg Childs wasn't exactly a speedster, but he was like 6'3" and a sub 4.5 guy. They had Kobe Hamilton. Over the years, you had guys like Chris Gregg. That's what I think they may have gotten out of Rohan Jones, the tight end, the transfer that graded out really high, according to PFF, really good numbers. I think they've maybe upgraded the offense. How much, I don't know. The question for me is, it is the receiving core. How good is it really? What's the ceiling there?
Yeah.
And then the defense. Don't like what's going on the edge. Don't know what to make. I think Quincy Rhodes has a lot of potential of being I think Quincy Rhodes has all conference potential written all over him. We haven't seen it. He's going into his 3rd year, and that's where, if he comes through and has maybe a Trey Flowers type impact, which I think is possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It could be a game changer. If Arkansas has a pass rush, that's a legit threat, this could be a really fun year for Arkansas. I'm not sure that, I don't know, So that being said, I have no idea where I'm at on how many wins yet. But I think right now, as of right now, and like I said, I haven't done a full breakdown on all these teams just yet, but based on what I know on the surface level, I only see 3, maybe 4 for sure losses.
Well, I'll tell you this. I feel like Arkansas Auburn is going to be one of those weird as hell overtime games for Arkansas. Because, if there's one thing I've noticed about Arkansas football, they have had that one game once every few years, that one weird overtime game where I think I could see something like that with Auburn, Arkansas. Because, Arkansas, they're not talked about like they were as much as they were in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Auburn, I know they're not going to bring their A game against Arkansas or Vandy, but they sure as heck will bring their A game against Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah.
Or possibly upset both of them. but they're not going to give Arkansas their A game. They're not giving Vandy their A game. And I think that's going to be one of Auburn's plenty mistakes for 2025.
I realize they upgraded their roster and they made some really good moves in the offseason. It's really going to depend on what the crowd is like, because Fayetteville, and I'll tell you, it is the most underrated stadium.
Yes.
For opposing fans. I mean, you've had 2 former Alabama quarterbacks say that is the toughest environment they've ever played in. And when they're halfway decent and you get 60, 65,000, it sounds like 80, 85,000 people in that stadium. I've been to both Little Rock and obviously I've been to plenty of games at War Memorial and a bunch of games in Fayetteville. And while War Memorial is loud because it's a bowl, it's like the crowd is right on top of you. Fayetteville people, I don't know what it is. When they show up, the electricity in the air, it's like you could see it. It's crazy. I'm not, it's not the toughest. I wouldn't even say it's the top 10, but when they're good in the Petrino era, I went to a bunch of games in the Petrino era. I hadn't heard anything like that since the early Houston Nutt era, or when Darren McFadden was there later on. In Nutt's time there. It's wild when Arkansas is good. And you mentioned the 60s and 70s, yeah, and even the 80s when they had Hatfield. Like, Arkansas was one of the 3 teams you had to go through in the Southwest Conference between them and A&M and Texas. And then later, because of the mass cheating going on at SMU, you had the Pony Express. But even then, like, they wanted to beat. I've watched that. That's probably one of the best sports docs I've ever watched, was the Pony Express. They talked about Arkansas, how they thought they finally were going to get Arkansas, and they ended up tying them. Arkansas was one of those 3 teams in the Southwest Conference that, like, yeah, you got to go through them. And since joining the SEC, and I know I've had this conversation so many times, it's just I think it was Jack Crow, former Arkansas coach, who told Frank Broyles in the late 80s, early 90s, whenever he was there. Well, I think it was when he was the head coach, and Frank Broyles had discussed. No, I'm getting my years mixed up. At any point, Frank Broyles had asked Jack Crow about joining the SEC, and his response was, well, we struggle with 1 Texas now. When we join the SEC, that's going to be 3 Texases. And it's crazy because he was actually wrong. You feel like now there's like, well, at least through the 2000s, for sure, you felt like there were about 5. When you look at LSU, Florida, Bama, Georgia, the list kind of goes on, and so it's been a tough go since joining the SEC, and it's money, it's recruiting in your own state. I mean, Jackson, I don't know if you looked at Arkansas's recruiting class, but they're losing out on their own in-state players like I have never seen before. And we're talking about 4-star talent. Not that they have a lot of it, because they don't. But it's not good. So, yeah. And depending on what website you look at, like, I think Rivals likes Arkansas's recruiting class as it stands. I think they've got them in like the top 13 last I looked. 247 has them barely in the top 25. But they've got so much work cut out for them, and now they're having to cut 10% of their athletic department like a lot of schools are. It's I'm not sure if the wind's blowing in Arkansas's direction or not. It doesn't seem like it is.
I think Arkansas needs like a Kurt Cinetti of their own. Like, once we hear like Pittman says he's retiring, or there's like a resignation or something happens, I think Arkansas needs to make sure they strike while the iron's hot before somebody else does.
Yeah, a lot of people put it on Hunter, and I get it. Like, it feels like they've been behind on NIL. It feels like they've been behind on a lot of things. And then the upgrades they wanted done, they're going to have to back off on. They really wanted to do this big upgrade to Bud Walton Arena, and they're going to have to back off on that. And there's just a lot of finger pointing going on. And Hunter, listen, he was responsible for bringing Eric Musselman, and Musselman finally brought Arkansas basketball back to its once former greatness. Like 3 straight Sweet 16s. Only Kentucky was really the team that could do that. Also with back-to-back Elite Eights, only Kentucky was capable of doing that with Cal. Now Hunter doesn't get a lot of credit for bringing Cal here. Of course, that goes to John Tyson of Tyson Foods. You know, the billionaire, one of I don't know how many we have in NWA, but he's one of them. He's one of the biggest names, and I think he was definitely responsible for bringing him here. Hunter is definitely on a hot seat with fans. And it feels like the blame is kind of actually shifted, even though fans aren't real big on Pittman. That blame is shifting towards Hunter. And you're right. I mean, there certainly feels like there needs to be a change. And I don't know, man. I think that Oklahoma AD job is still open. Maybe he takes that job. Maybe we're reading about that next week, unless that's been filled. I don't know.
Oh man, with Joe, with the AD retiring, that kind of makes Brent Venable's seat even hotter because
Oh
like Joe
man.
was the one that brought him in, and now that he's going to be going to retirement, either playing golf or watching Me TV or trying out that Me TV Tunes channel, he's going to be chilling out on a couch or on a porch somewhere.
Yeah.
Venable's like, okay, I better run for the hills.
Yeah. I was a little surprised by that. I really was. I was a little surprised by him stepping down. Um, how long has he been there?
Oh, he's been there since I was a baby.
Yeah, he's been there since like the late 90s,
Uh-huh.
if I'm not mistaken. He's been there forever. And
Oh yeah, since we had like Cartoon Network starting out.
since like the beginning of Family Guy. I mean, what are we doing? what are we doing here?
I know, right? It just feels like, wow, the 20th century really is dying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know neither of us really care about Oklahoma, but that was a school for sure for a time in basketball and football where it's like, yeah, they're pretty good.
That
I
would
mean,
actually be a pretty good rivalry. Like, get those two playing each other more often in football. Like, I mean,
Arkansas, Oklahoma.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's like, if you have Arkansas, Kentucky play each other, cool, I don't care. But
yeah,
Arkansas, Oklahoma, that sounds like a lot of fun. Like that was like a missed opportunity to have them play a bunch in the 60s, 70s. But like one schedule note I've noticed for Arkansas is that they've had one win against Texas A&M since A&M joined the SEC, and two wins over Missouri since they started playing each other annually in 2014.
mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, something's got to give on both of those games for
It's
Arkansas.
wild. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, Petrino was undefeated against A&M when he was the head coach when they played that when it was just the Southwest Conference Classic or whatever when they were playing it inside the house that Jones built.
Oh yeah, I remember that series in '08. That was all set to be played from '09 to sometime in the 2020s, I believe. But then like
Well,
A&M announces join the SEC. It's like,
yeah,
oh, we're gonna play that forever and ever still at the Jerry Dome.
and it should have always been a home at home. It should never have been inside that place. You can't take recruits there. And every year, Arkansas's. I've never been. Everyone that I've talked to that have gone to a lot of them says, "Oh yeah, it's overwhelming. It's an A&M home game." And you're at a recruiting disadvantage, which Arkansas is already playing every other year in Little Rock. They've got to play there this year, and that's also you can't take recruits to that because that's not university owned. That's owned by the state of Arkansas. So it is just so stupid they played in that place for so long. I get that they did actually use it as a recruiting pitch though, and I've heard that actually kind of there's some players that really like that, especially players.
Excelente.
Say what?
Excelente.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it's a home and home now, and it always should
Yeah.
have been. And I do think had it been, it wouldn't be so lopsided. But definitely the majority of that time, A&M was the better program, and not by much, but
Oh, I keep thinking about 2011 where like A&M had that huge lead and then
yeah,
they blew it once again. Like that was
yeah,
like 5 of the 6 losses for A&M. Like the only time they didn't have a halftime lead going into halftime was against Oklahoma. Other than that, that was it. They
yeah,
lost to Mizzou. They lost to Oklahoma State. They lost to Arkansas. They
yeah.
lost to Kansas State, and they lost to Texas on Thanksgiving night.
Wow.
So that was nuts.
Yeah, you've got crazy memory.
I remember A&M Missouri was on FX. I remember watching a little bit of
Yeah,
that at
yeah, because
14.
Big 12 had that deal with FX, right? They had the long-term deal with FX Sports or whatever. I do vaguely remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was like for a minute. It was only for like a couple years where we saw like Big 12 games and Pac
Yeah,
12 games on
that's right.
FX.
Yeah.
I actually thought that was pretty cool. Like, getting to watch a little Archer and watch a little college football on FX. So it's
Yeah.
like maybe they need to do that with NFL games. That'd be sweet. Just be like, well, hell, let's put an NFL game on there. Because I mean, it's like,
Mhm.
why do we have that local listing stuff in 2025? Like, seriously, that's
Right.
not. Oh, we'll just have like this game on Fox Sports 1. We'll just have this game on Fox Sports 2, and we'll have this game on FX. I mean, that would make you a lot of money. But
You'd think,
I
right?
know.
You would think. But yeah, that 2011 game, that ended up being a really good game. I remember that. I think that was the game that Jarius Wright just went off, and Tyler Wilson just I can't. That's all fuzzy to me, but that was a really good year for Arkansas football. Of course, that was the last great year Arkansas's had was 2011. But Wilson, that's the game Wilson threw for guys like 500 yards of offense or something. Wright had almost like 270 or something, was just unstoppable. A&M had no answer. That was a really good game, and that's a game I'd recommend people to go look up. War Machine. Everyone knows if you're a Hog fan who that is, but War
Oh,
Machine.
he's got all those classic
Yeah,
Arkansas.
he's got them all. I'm pretty sure he has that one. I recommend you to go
Shout
watch
out
it.
to War Machine on YouTube.
That's right. He's the man. I'm trying to get him on. We're trying to do an interview, trying to get him on for an interview and talk to him about. And I'll probably bring that game up. That's got to be one of his most viewed videos. So that was just a wild game.
Oh man, I'll make sure to tune into that one when that does come out. If you can make it happen, that'll be cool.
I'm pretty sure it's already out. I think you can look it up. I'm almost positive he's got that uploaded. I'll have to ask him or go look.
Oh man, it's like I'll make sure to tag y'all. Tell everybody, hey, tune in.
There you go.
So there you go. Well, Ty, for those who don't know about what's going on Tusk Talk with Ty or the magic you're creating, where can people find you, good buddy? Let's get you to 7,000 subs and 10,000 subs.
Yeah, I'm not full time on the sense that I'm daily. I used to do a lot of reactionary content, whether there was a commitment or some big news. I've really lately in the off season, it's about one or two, really one live show a week, and then I'm cutting that up and posting those. I'm trying to upload, and the goal this year has been Patreon for the summer, and I've already got, I don't know, I think I'm up to 3 videos already since late June. Couple of non-related Razorback videos that are stuff that people have sent me in the mail, and people were asking me to upload footage of that, of some stuff that people were sending me to my PO box, and I was like, oh, okay. And I thought about it, and I actually did it, and people seem to enjoy those videos. They like to make fun of the knife that I use. I use a large bread knife to open the packages, and I got people making fun of me in my Discord for that. But what, you don't have a pocket knife, Ty? What are you doing there? But so I'm kind of balancing out content between Patreon and YouTube, and I just uploaded a live stream of EA College Football 2-6, going over Arkansas's roster a little bit, and we also fired up a game against Notre Dame that I would lose, but I think I lost a small margin. I didn't lose by a lot. But yeah, once fall camp comes around, it's going to be a lot more content for sure. But the off season, I don't have a team I don't have a staff to help me balance out these live shows. I've got a couple of guys. Shout out to Tim Neal and Travis Ford, who helped me with the Monday Night Lights live show that never streams on Monday night. It's more like maybe a Tuesday, maybe a Wednesday live show, but we try to do those later in the evening. But I wish, it'd be nice if I had writers and, I had the ability to bring on people to really help me pump out more and more content. But right now it's just me. But I'd love to. I'm looking into maybe in the near future trying to bring on some people to help me post more and more content. But yeah, I Tusk Talk with Ty. You can find me on Twitter, and I deleted the Facebook page, but I do still have the Twitter, and of course you could find me on YouTube, Tusk Talk with Ty. And like I said, the content, if you're a Patreon supporter, you're definitely getting you're getting content there for sure. And we're going to speed up the content on YouTube here and really soon, because Jackson Fall Camp is almost here, and I'm really excited.
There we go. Well, as of filming, we are only 52 days away until kickoff for the Arkansas Razorbacks. But as of this release, for all of you tuning in on this premiere of episode 75 of Jacksonian, it's 51 days away.
Wait, Arkansas's 50, 52?
Yeah, 52 as of July 9th as we are filming, but on July 10th on the premiere, on everybody tuning in, it's
Yeah.
51 days. Arkansas is playing on a Saturday on August 30th.
God, it feels like there's because they do play in August, which is great. I love that when August 1st when we turn the calendar to August 1st, it's football month for the Razorbacks. But God,
This is the last month without football.
It's great. It's great.
Yes. Oh, man. And, of course, you can come on in and become a Discord member on Tusk Talk with Ty, where you can discuss your favorite takes on the Arkansas Razorbacks with Tusk Talk with Ty himself, Ty Hudson. There we go. And you can check out the 20th edition of Alabama Primetime Live, where I subbed in for Coach Smoke Hines, as Manny Wilson was back on the show after a month-long sabbatical, where we went over our take on the latest news and notes on the Alabama Crimson Tide. And you can check out the 45th edition of Crimson Tide Live, where Coach Johnny Burtz and myself went over our take on the latest news and notes on Alabama, including at Xavier Griffin's mom going at the rumors that Nick Saban had a lot to do with 2026 recruiting for Alabama. We know for sure Nick Saban's just chilling out. He's not sitting there thinking about recruiting for 2026. He's thinking about College Game Day and the Aflac Duck and Coach Prime. So he's having fun. So that is for sure. And later tonight will be the 40th edition of the Alabama Call-In Show, where it's 51 days till kickoff. And Jeffrey at Only Talk Sports, myself, take your calls on the Crimson Tide. You'll be in for a fun one. And you can check me out on Jackson Johnson 979, where I'm 322 subs away from the magic number 1,000. I'll definitely need all the help I can get getting to 1,000. And for more updates on what I've got going on Alabama with the Voice of College Football, or the Jacksonian, or the once a week calls on the Paul Feinbaum Show, where the weekends are full of surprises, check me out on Jackson VOCFB on @/Twitter and on Instagram threads at Jackson Johnson 543908. And you can check me out on Alabama with the Voice of College Football, where we are 385 subs away from 3,000. And with that being said, we wish you all a happy Thursday night. Stay safe, stay cool, stay away from the heat, and like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss another video or another episode whatsoever. And we will see you soon. Have a good Thursday night, everybody.